Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this Monday, the 21st of February, 2022. Thank you for tuning in. I've been having a lot of technical difficulties this morning. Do you know, I recorded 2 full shows lasting over 20 minutes each, and each time my camera had shut off on me and I didn't know it halfway through the show. I got it fully recorded and found that the camera had shut off. So I just gave up, and I said, I'm going to have some lunch, and then I'll come back and try again. So that's what I did, you know. Went up to KFC and had a little something to eat, and come back, and now I'm giving it my second shot. But anyway, let's hope things stay working and functioning. Okay, I'm just going to check my camera here first. Yeah, it's still on. Okay, that's good. We'll start the charts right here and take a look at what's going on. Yeah, shale oil. You know, when they first went in to America and started digging the oil out of the ground, you remember the Beverly Hillbillies? Do you remember Jed Clampett, you know, and the Beverly Hillbillies? He ran out and he was hunting for some game, and he shot a hole into the ground. The oil come bubbling up, and then he became a millionaire, and he went to Beverly Hills. Well, Standard Oil, that's the way it was for Standard Oil down in the United States back a long time ago. They would dig into the ground, and what would come out would be what's called a gusher. It was under pressure down there. So they sucked from that and tapped from that oil reserve for years, and what happened was ultimately it started to go dry, and then they had to cap the wells off. Well, years later, they were able to come back, and they were able to use fracking and get oil again out of those wells through using high pressure and steam and things like that, and chemicals and stuff. Now, what that basically amounts to is like a kid, you know, his mother's going to cook some pudding. So she cooks up the pudding in a pot and she pours the pudding off. That's like the original oil that was in those wells, a large amount. But there's always some left in the pan. She hands the pan off to the kid and he licks the pan out, licks all the pudding out of the pan. That's basically what fracking is. It's like licking the leftover pudding out of the pan and cleaning it really clean. And it doesn't last real long. It doesn't have staying power. It doesn't last for 30 years, 40 years or anything. It's a very minimal period of time it lasts. And that's what's happening to the United States now. It was a big boom of oil. They were hauling up all that fracking oil, you know. Now those wells they need to be refurbished or whatever, and it just ain't coming like it was coming, you know. Now as prices climb, up toward $200 a barrel, then suddenly some of these untapped oil reserves are going to become viable again when the oil price gets high enough. One is the Canadian tar sands become very viable. That's a very large oil reserve. And West Texas, you know, out there in the Permian oil basin, there's a lot of untapped reserves in the Permian oil basin that are very deep, and they require more money per barrel. But when oil price gets up around $200 a barrel, or well over $100 a barrel, it starts to become viable again, and we'll start to see oil come into the market. But until then, because the United States now is a net importer, we're going to see oil prices rising because OPEC now has wars on the horizon. Now, you know, you guys, I've been saying for a number of weeks, don't hold your breath waiting for a war in Ukraine, but I've changed my mind on that now. Things are turning for the worst over there in Ukraine. War could break out. And if we see war break out, we're going to see a number of things happen. We'll get into that right away, and we'll talk about what we'll see happen. First, we're going to look at the crypto price. Today is 1761 with a Bitcoin price of 38,843. Now, we could see a reversal of fortunes here. For the longest time, we've seen gold and silver suppressed, pricing going down. Crypto's going up and up and up to the moon. Crypto investors have felt on top of the world, buying Lamborghinis and all that kind of stuff, you know. and saying, oh, you invested in gold and silver, oh, poor guy. You should have come over here on our cryptos. We've made a fortune. Well, the tables might get turned pretty soon on this. And, some people out there who are very keen on all these things between the crypto, because if we get a war, gold and silver's going to go up. Can't say the same thing for crypto. And so some people out there is pretty keen. They're right on the money, and everything. They might be making like a reverse trade, and then basically how that would work is they would go out and they would use their crypto to buy gold and silver, and then they reverse it back the other way again when it starts to reverse. And I think there's going to be an opportunity here for a reverse trade between cryptos and gold and silver. There's going to be an opportunity. I don't think it's going to last real long, but I think there's going to be that opportunity. Let's take a look now at the silver price at $23.90. It's down 3 cents. Let's take a look at gold. Gold is up 90 cents at $1,900 even. Well, $1,900.10. Let's take a look at the Dow Jones, which is down 232 points on the day. Refresh the page. Yeah, 232 points. It's behaving just like I told you guys it would. A slow decline downwards with more and more people not buying the dip anymore, but now they're selling the rally. So we've seen a change in the market, and this is going to continue until the Fed relents and they change their monetary policy. And that could come just overnight. You could just have it happen overnight, especially if things turn sour in the bond market. But for now, we're going to talk about the bond market just a second. Let's take a look at crude oil, 97.20. It's up $1.63 today, or 1.79%. Yeah, the war drums are beating. Crude oil, things that are going to go up during the war. I see the market's going down, crypto going down, gold and silver going up, commodities going up, gold, oil going up. During a war, and it could be the making of silver. It could be, really seriously, because silver is in such tight supply, and it's such a small marketplace. It's very vulnerable to supply side, silver supply side. It's very vulnerable to that. Ore grade's been falling off. Demand's been going up, and demand's going to continue to go. They got a lot of solar panels to make, and their new green initiatives and stuff. They've got a lot of electronic cars to make and everything else. You need silver for all that electronics and things. And that means that there's going to be none for investors to buy. That means prices are going to soar. And if they can find any silver, the way it's been for years now, is you go into your local silver dealer and they're like wishy-washy about whether they want to buy it or not. They're like, might give you the spot price or $2 under spot or whatever, and you could take it or leave it, sort of a thing, right? There's a time coming in the not too distant future where that is all going to change. You go into your local silver dealer and they're going to be sniffing for silver. If you got any silver, they're going to be like, want it so bad, they'll take it regardless of what form it comes in. Silver, ooh boy, that's the attitude they're going to have. We'll give you cash for it right now, whatever. It's going to completely change from the way it's been. Once we get into this period where there's not enough silver to go around to cover industrial demand and bar and coin demand. They're not going to have enough to cover both. One or the other, sort of a thing. It's a squeeze. Move index today, 94.36. Going along sideways, but at a higher level than it has been. That means the credit markets are a little bit more unstable. Now we're going to take a look at bonds and rates. Where are my bond chart? Here we go. But falling yields. Tell you what, guys, the bonds are expressing to us, they're telling us something, they're whispering in our ear right now that we see these yields falling. I don't consider bonds to be a safe haven asset. But I'm not the guy with the money. The guys with the money out there are telegraphing to the bond market that something big's coming right now. And they're actually buying in quite heavily to these bonds. They've driven the yields down in the US 10-year considerably. It was over 2%. Now it's at 1.927. US 30 years at 2.24. So there we go. That's a telegraph, direct telegraph. Something big's coming. Okay. Dollar index 96.02, and it's rising very slowly today. I wanted to talk to you guys about something real quick before I finish my show. How are you guys going to know when to run for the hills, when the SHTF or SHIF or whatever it's called, is coming, when it's imminent, when it's ready to occur? Well, the next thing coming out of the government is something called wage and price controls. They're going to have to do it because they're not going to go into more fiscal stimulus because their balance sheet's too high. And the people are going to start getting upset because they can't feed, the prices are too high in groceries and stuff. There's going to be there's going to be noise coming there that they're uncomfortable with. So what they're going to do is to try to solve that problem. The government is going to put price controls on food. Basically going to set the price, and probably meat's going to be one of the first things that they set the price on. And that'll work at first. The farmers won't make enough money on their meat. What happens next is the government then subsidizes the farmers. But not all farmers will qualify because the government always makes a lot of hurdles and hoops you got to jump through. In order to qualify. So that eliminates a lot of the meat producers. There's going to be a lot of meat wasted. And then what happens next is the government starts to regulate who can buy the meat on the other end. See, it's government regulation all the way through. They'll regulate all these food-producing industries. They'll regulate them. And they also regulate who qualifies to buy it on the other end, Everything government touches turns to muck. Quite seriously. And that's what's going to happen here. And at first it'll probably just be maybe meat and eggs or whatever. And then they'll expand it out to include grains. And then they'll expand it out to include everything in the grocery store. And then they'll make it so that you can only buy if you've got some government way to buy it. In other words, they'll start rationing it. When we get down to the point, and it could all happen really fast, guys. When we get down to the point where you see lineups for people lining up to buy meat, and only half of them get the meat, and then they run out of meat, and the other guys have to go home, and maybe they've been standing in line for 2 hours waiting for their meat. And they come out and they say, oh, that's it, all the meat for today, you're going to have to come back tomorrow. When you see that, it's ready to happen. That's your signal. They're only going to push the people so far before the people become too hungry and stuff. And the system starts to devolve then from that point forward. Because through periods of time, going back in history, man's been hunter-gatherers. You want to picture the Stone Age or whatever you want to picture in your mind, they used to have to go out and hunt and gather food. When mankind gets hungry, they revert back to being hunter-gatherers. And so, when they hunter-gather, they oftentimes formed into groups and went after the mammoth or whatever, If you could picture them all running through the field after a mammoth with bows and arrows, a whole group of them, hundreds of them, running, and they brought the mammoth down, and they cut him up into pieces, and took him home on on their sleds or whatever, or over their back, and big chunks of meat, and they all shared the meat. You know? Well, these are primitive instincts. And when humanity gets hungry, they go back to these primitive instincts again. And this is when the system starts to actually break down and not function properly. And it's going to be during that time when the system's not functioning properly that our money's not functioning either. So on the other side of this coin, when you take a look at your police forces or whatever, or your armies or whatever, they have to have a functioning currency. What's the sense of paying them? The government says, okay, you're a soldier, we're going to give you $10,000 a month. That sounds like a lot right now, and right now that would be a lot. But you go to the store and an apple's $1,000. I mean, you ain't even going to feed him enough to make a long march. You got a non-functioning currency then at that point. And the way the system's set up now, none of them ain't going to do. Why do you think that these police forces and stuff are willing to get out there and put themselves in front of a crowd of angry protesters? It doesn't matter what country it's in. It could be over in Paris or whatever. They do it because they're going to get paid. Money. That's why they're doing it. They do it for the money. Because they get a salary and they know if they don't do it, they're going to get fired. If you got a non-functioning currency, I'm sorry, but it just doesn't work. So for the political structure out there and everybody else, I mean, for your first line of protection, if you consider your police forces and stuff, they ain't going to work unless they get paid. If you got a non-functioning currency, you won't even be able to bring the troops home, for crying out loud. The airplanes have got to buy gas to fly them home. And you got a non-functioning currency, you can't do anything with it. Prices can go up daily. The dollar could lose 50% of its value in one day if you get a hyperinflation. So you say, well, they'll do a reset. They'll do a reset. Everybody's invested in the dollar. All these big companies, corporations, everything is invested in the dollar. You just can't say, well, we're going to reset it all and the dollar's worth nothing now and this is going to be worth something, because they don't have this, whatever this is. See what I'm saying? The system breaks up because it functions on money. To say that the system can run with a non-functioning currency is like saying a car can run without gas. Oh, the guy says, oh yeah, my car will run on water. He says, I'm going to empty my gas tank and I'm going to fill it with seawater. Well, unless you got a fusion reactor in there, your car ain't going to run on water. It's just going to clog up all the pipes and the pistons will be full of water and you ain't going nowhere. That's the way with this system. The currency is what runs. It's like gasoline. It runs the system. The system is like the engine. And the currency is like the gasoline. And what we see coming here, and what I see coming when we say hyperinflation, what we're talking about is a non-functioning currency. This system's barely on life support as it is. You get a non-functioning currency, and it's just all going to fall to pieces. So how do you know when that's going to happen? Watch the food lines. In particular, watch meat. When you see meat prices going up too high, the government puts price controls in, and then shortages come. And then the shortages get compounded and get really bad. That's the time when you got to worry. And I'm thinking about 2 years from now, at the rate we're going. Thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.